Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they hold up. Today, we're turning the page, and I'm turning the page with Andrew on the Insert Your Sponsorship Here hotline, as well as Kyle also on the same hotline. Gentlemen.
Kyle's a poser, and he doesn't do anything original. That's all I got to say.
That was unfounded and completely grasped out of thin air. Can you expound and give me some kind of elaborate details on how I'm unoriginal and based?
We don't need to bore our listeners with that, but just know, listeners, what I said is true about Kyle. He is unoriginal and very rarely thinks for himself. And with that, I think we should move on to what is next. Isn't that right, Chase? Moving on quickly. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Yeah.
Andrew,
okay. I'll take you back, bitch.
Well, I feel like we have some new listeners to the show. They're listening to this nonsense, and where are they listening from, Andrew?
Oh, all over the globe. We got some
blanket statement.
We got someone in Istanbul. Can you believe that? I believe that's Turkey. It says Istanbul, but I would imagine that's Istanbul, Turkey. I don't know any others.
Welcome to the Turkey A, by the way. It's Turkey A.
Yeah. Meridian, Idaho, Lehigh, Utah, Chihuahua City, Chihuahua, that's in Mexico for those who don't know, Lemon, South Dakota, and a lot more. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We appreciate you, and hope to add a few more people to that list.
That's right. We appreciate all of our listeners from around the world. Obviously, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Andrew's over there in Louisville, Kentucky, and Kyle is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we do have listeners in those areas as well. We appreciate everybody. The one thing you can do is share our podcast. If you like the content, please share it. It helps us keep the show free, and we want to do that. Also, help us find a sponsor. We need a sponsor for our hotline at some point.
TaylorMade and Kirkland Signature have been with us for a minute now. We kicked Blue Chew to the side, but hey, we're open for business here.
I just want to pause real quick and just take a second to thank Kirkland Signature for their unwavering support throughout the many years we've been doing this podcast, and as well as their commitment to fine products and keeping everything American made when possible. Without Kirkland Signature, I don't know if we would have the cheese boards. I don't know if we'd have the air fryers. I don't know if we'd have the frozen fine food products that we need to continue the years of this show going forward. So we want to thank our original sponsor, Kirkland Signature. Thank you, Kirkland Signature.
Yes, and thank you for the monthly supply of rotisserie chickens. We appreciate
Thank you very much.
Kyle, I was going to say Erica bought another appliance, didn't she? Because that's what it sounded like when I heard all that.
Yeah, we now have a Chef Man air fryer, so yes.
Great. Shout out to you, Erica, for supporting Kirkland's series.
And for living with Kyle and choosing to marry him.
That's true. And having his child.
It definitely was not a choice. It was more of a forced situation.
Oh, police don't need to know about that. All right, so moving on. Kyle, can you describe your energy levels today using police terms?
Using police terms?
Yeah, sure, because he just opened the door for that.
No. Hey, I think I don't want to step on your toes here, but considering the theme here, I'm going to deviate here. Kyle, I want you to describe your energy level using classical fiction terms.
So my energy level in police terms, I'll do first. That we just arrived at the scene, and all you hear on the radio is gunshot wound to the head. Call the paramedics. We have a pulse. So there's that. Obviously, no need for the paramedics to get there, but they have to and are bound by law. And there's probably not a pulse. So there's that one. And then fictional.
Classical fiction.
I haven't really read too much classical fiction, but I will say.
Yes, you have.
Today, what have I read?
Well, I would imagine you probably read Sherlock Holmes or Robert Louis Stevenson or Bram Stoker. You know of those.
I know of them, but I've read Hound of the Baskervilles.
There you go. There's something. That's a thing.
I guess I'm a well-bred, large-bodied dog who takes massive shits outside after he eats people and defaces them. and is being hunted by people who think he's some kind of ghostly specter. Fun existence.
Yeah, I feel like
That's beautiful.
I feel like so many people can relate to that.
Yeah, we should have led with that one as opposed to the much darker previous scenario, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like both scenarios worked out. The gunshot wound to the head into the dog shitting. That is hold up. Like what everyone just listened to, and especially our new listeners in Istanbul, this is what hold up is. So I don't know if you're going to listen to future episodes. But the reason that Andrew was so adamant to do classical fiction is because we watched The Pagemaster. A little forgotten classic, right, Andrew?
I mean, I've never seen it.
Yeah, so you have no childhood memory to this one at all.
No, I know Macaulay Culkin, obviously.
I'm glad you do.
But yeah, him and I, he's like my third cousin once removed. Him and I actually go way back on my dad's side. So
wait, your dad owns the U.S. Navy?
He owns the government. But he specializes in naval strategy.
Naval strategy and doctrine, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm out for a walk and I'm saying some weird shit. I'm walking by like four people and I'm going to turn the other way here just so I can continue this little tangent. But yeah, you're right about my dad there, Kyle. Thank you for bringing that up.
No, you're welcome. I figured that you want me to talk about it. I hope
Wasn't your dad blacklisted from the CIA at one point and he had to change his name?
He was. He is also.
I remember this story though, Andrew, is because he had to blacklist himself because he owns the CIA.
Yes.
So he did it on a gesture of good faith.
Correct. And in terms of moving up the ranks at that point, it was a bad look. It was a bad look in government corridors to have that connection. So he blacklisted himself. So that was not looked at, more forgotten about. Also, my dad is the inspiration for the character Jean Valjean, just so you know, in Les Miserables. So
that's a fair point that I forgot about, actually, and I think our listeners
Everyone does, but he is the main inspiration for the creation of that world-famous character, just so you know. It's fair.
I love that for you. Back to The Pagemaster, turning the page, as we would like to say on the show.
Good one.
Yeah, I know, right? Kyle, since Andrew has no recollection of this movie at all, what do you remember about The Pagemaster growing up?
This is one that I watched like probably once or twice, and I remembered some of, and I remember it being kind of scary, which we'll definitely get into in a little bit. But also, I didn't remember what it was about. It was about like a kid that gets like sucked into a fictional world where the books guide him through major genres of literature.
They found out that there was only one genre that they keep working with.
It's pretty much the same fucking thing. The adventures that they get into are, having watched it as an adult, is no reason why. No wonder watching it as an adult. There's no wonder why I forgot what would happen in it, because it doesn't actually have to really sit in any of those adventures or any of those books for too long. So all I remember is it being scary, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I watched the shit out of this movie when I was a kid. This is probably one of those animated movies I watched the most. I'm trying to think. I know there was like a handful of them that I just watched on repeat, and this was one of them.
Would you say that this one had a pretty big impact on your childhood?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It actually, when we watch this movie, which we'll dive into like the blow by blow, but like all the horror elements and the supernatural elements, it was the breeding ground for me of becoming like the horror fan that I am now. Like as a kid, I was always like into that kind of stuff and enamored by the supernatural. So like this movie hits a lot of that, especially like in the first like 40 minutes of it. Like it is playing in that genre a lot, and it's kid-friendly horror. It's nothing that's gonna it frightened me as a kid. This movie was kind of scary. And they do kind of do some things with the animation that, you know, it could be pretty frightening for a child. The main thing that I remember was that there was a Sega Genesis game called The Pagemaster, and I played it one weekend. We talked about it.
Were you a Sega Genesis guy? Did you have a Sega Genesis?
Yeah, I had it because my brother had one. So
cool.
he would get the next console and I would get the hand-me-down. So I was playing Genesis games when like the PlayStation 1 was out or PlayStation 2 was out.
Yeah.
This was a rental, and I remember the game being really dark, not just in like tone, but in lighting as well. Like you couldn't see shit, and it was like one of those annoying platformers where you couldn't figure out where you could jump onto, and so you would get stuck real easily. Because Andrew, we talked about this last week. Those early Genesis games were a real bitch to play.
They were difficult. Like we said, kids now don't know how good they have it when it comes to their video games. And we didn't have YouTube, and we didn't have easy access to Google just to find out how to, get from point A to point B to point whatever. We had to figure that shit out on our own. Those games are difficult. Yeah?
Well, and like they wanted them to be difficult because they wanted you to buy the game walkthrough. So you would go purchase that so you could figure out how to beat level 1. And this game was like that. It was like one of those, like, I think it's known to be a really bad game. There was an SNES version of it that I think was a little bit better than the Genesis version. But I think it came out on like 4 different platforms. It just another thing that just came and went. But we talked about it a little bit with Bugs Life.
It was the same shit.
They would make a video game for any kids movie out there. Same thing as that they would make toys. They would make just a copy and paste video game. It was always the same.
If there was a child movie out, it would for sure go to Game Boy. There was a Game Boy game for like all of those.
This was on the Game Boy Advance too.
Yes, it was. It was indeed. Actually, I don't think it was Advance. I think that was just like Game Boy, like the original Game Boy, and then into Game Boy Pocket. There wasn't Advance. Advance was the color and the small cartridges. This was black and white. He didn't get color with this one. So.
Yeah, and I just remember it being a terrible game, but I remember the game.
For sure.
And I remember watching this movie a lot. I don't think it was popular enough to have toys. I could be mistaken on that.
I don't think so.
But I don't...
Also, the toys, we'll get into it, but the toys would have been...
Plushes, maybe?
Yeah, but like, what do you make the toys of? Like Jekyll and Hyde and like
the books. I mean,
Captain Ahab.
They could
I guess you could.
You could have made a plushes of those 3 books. Like you could have.
I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. They found a way to make toys out of everything back in the 80s and 90s. Because what is this, 94 that we're talking about?
94.
Yeah.
Yep. 4 years after Home Alone. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're almost there. But this one was big in my childhood, and plus it kind of opened my eyes to like fiction and different books. Like it made me interested in reading Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It made me interested in reading Robinson Crusoe. All those like books that they reference in this film. Kyle, I want you to keep tabs on for me the fiction references that we get.
There's a number of them. Also, I don't know if y'all caught some of like the titles that were casually just like tucked away like on a shelf.
Oh yeah.
Or okay, we'll talk about it. But there were a few that I saw. I was like, oh, that's on the nose.
Well, Andrew, was this movie successful? I think I already know, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you anyway.
Kyle, do you think this movie was a financial success?
No.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a major flop. It was like a budget of $34 million, and it only grossed altogether like 13.3 or 13.4.
Wait, one more time.
It was a $34 million budget. Oh. It only grossed like 13.4 million altogether. So
I'm impressed they were able to keep the budget so low, though. That is one of the lower animated budgets we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I wonder what the budget was for some of like the animated movies that we've done around that time, like Brave Little Toaster. I don't exactly remember, but I don't think those were like crazy high. Like I remember something like 30 million or 40 million maybe.
Right, and we're two years away from Bugs Life, and Bugs Life was up there to 130 million. Like we're about the same. I mean, we're not far removed from Ants, and it had a huge budget. This isn't that far
from Bugs Life if you want to, but it's only 4, probably 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about when Bugs Life went into production 2 years later.
That's 96. So that was 96 was the same year Toy Story came out. So it was Toy Story was probably in production at that time, and I guarantee you its budget was over 50 million.
Easily
had to have been.
Yeah. So it's shortened budget, but still 13 million at the box office. That's just box office death.
And Macaulay Culkin was a big name at that point, and the entire cast was big. I mean, you have Christopher Lloyd, you have Patrick Stewart, you got Whoopi Goldberg,
Leonard
you
Nimoy.
got Leonard Nimoy. What's his name? You had mentioned it earlier when we were talking. The guy from SNL. Why can't I think of his name? Jesus Christ, that's embarrassing. Phil Hartman. Sorry, Phil Hartman was in this as well. Smaller role, but he was there. And then Jim Cummings, that's a really good cast. You would think there'd be more success, but
I think part of this we can attribute to when we get into the blow by blow and our lack of direction with what comes next. I just don't think it ever committed to one thing for too long, and there's no hard questions being asked. There's no if you're not going to do what Ants does and just make it a fun time the whole time. This was just very much like, what are we going? Are we just talking about these things? Are we just talking about that's a book, and that's also a book. Cool. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I think we might.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and the backstory, too, to this film, we're following a trend. I was talking to Andrew about this before we jumped onto the show. This film is kind of falling in line with what we've been talking about. We've been talking about new animation studios trying a different project. Everybody kind of saw what happened with Don Bluth when he left Disney, and he started his own animation studio. Steven Spielberg starts his own animation studio. We've talked about that with We're Back. We've talked about that with Titan AE, all these other new projects. Well, this is no different. This is Turner taking a swing at animation. So this is the first film done by Turner Animated Studios, and it's one of two, as you can tell by the lackluster box office numbers. They did another film called Cats Don't Dance. Do you remember that one, Andrew?
No.
Vaguely. The name sounds really familiar, but I don't know much.
It was an absolute bomb as well, and it also ended Turner Animation Studios. That's where we're at with this. The Pagemaster is a part of something new that wasn't going to last very long.
Yeah.
But let's find out. Let's find out if it holds up, if it's something you should dust off. So, Andrew, are you ready? Did you sneeze?
Andrew sneezed.
I don't have a nose anymore, so it wasn't really a sneeze, and it wasn't me. So I think it's deflection from Kyle, who might have squeaked out a sneeze or perhaps a bit of flatulence. So
I would let you know if I flatulated, because that's something that I
don't think you would. You're too prideful. You're too prideful, and you get embarrassed easily.
Good they are.
You're prideful, and the thought that you don't want people thinking negatively of you in any aspects. You can't give into that. So you'll hide anything that would potentially, sully your name, if you will. So I bet you started.
Much Victor Orban, so not far off.
100%. Yeah, unequivocally.
Well, perfect. Yeah. So speaking of that, Andrew, where does this movie start? Where does it take place?
Well, you have a little intro scene. It's amalgamation of a whole bunch of clouds and other things. They take the form of a pirate ship. They take the form of I believe a large house that might be haunted. I mean, it's all kind of in this swirling vortex of grayish.
Well, and I'm glad you brought all this up, because I was thinking about this, and we haven't really touched base with it with all these movies that we get from the 80s and early 90s. I miss intros that were kind of themed toward the movie you were about to watch, and now you just get scrolling credits and then right into it. Some people prefer that. I thoroughly enjoy watching the animation of this intro style, to really kind of hype you up for what you're about to watch.
And it's visually stunning. It pulls you in. It's well done.
Even the text graphics have the book chapter kind of lettering to start, and it's very appealing to the eye.
It's probably hand drawn. These animations are most assuredly hand drawn. I would bet it looks like it. So it is. Yeah, it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
to put it lightly.
But we open up on, we've got a kid, right? We've got Macaulay Culkin, who we were talking about.
All of those storm clouds and animations. it comes to a realization that Macaulay Culkin's character is dreaming, and he wakes up because some of those animations are a bit jolting. It's a little bit frightening, and he wakes up and he's in his room, and it's dark and stormy, and he's this scared little kid. That's pretty much what it is.
He's not just a scared little kid, though. They established earlier that this kid is scared of everything.
Everything, yes.
Everything.
He is truly, he is. He's got deep-rooted anxiety at like age 6.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to climb ladders. Doesn't want to play baseball. Instead, he'll talk about all the injuries you could possibly endure by playing the sport and probabilities of home accidents and things of that nature. He's
so
you can tell
eccentric.
his father's not really too impressed with him because I'm trying to get him on all these things, but all he can tell me like the percentages of like how many people get killed in this accident versus that, and how like what happens if you have to like. He's so unbelievable as a child that it already took me out of the first bit of it because I'm like, there is no child that is like that.
no,
There
not
is
at
no
all.
6-year-old. There's no 6, 7, 8-year-old that is like that worried and knows granularly like, and also how the fuck would you know this shit?
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
before all the fun stuff with the internet. Like, how would you know that?
Yeah, and
So-
I mean,
and we're gonna get to that too because they double down on it, which is bad. But there's in this whole scene, like he's just worrying about everything. To Kyle's point, he's all these like useless statistics that no kid would give a shit about. His dad talks.
unless Chase, he was severely autistic. That was the first thing I thought about. Like I was like, is this kid on the spectrum?
I
Like,
knew,
that's
I
fine if he
knew,
is,
I
but
knew you were going to bring it up at some point in this episode.
to.
I was going to see organically when it was going to happen. I guess we got
I had
what,
to.
2
I
minutes
had
into the
to.
blow by blow, and here we are. Macaulay Culkin is autistic. Everybody.
Well, that
If-
might
if
go
your
into a
friends-
theory.
You finish your theory, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
That might go into my theory that I'll get into in a little bit about what this movie is actually about, even though they definitely did not intend for it to be this at all. But I have a feeling that when we get into the next chain of events, I'll be able to kind of draw a bigger picture. And that definitely, Andrew, I thought the same thing. So you're not the only one that thought that. I was like,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was like, it's
if
definitely plausible.
if we described this kid to someone who had no idea we were talking about a character in a movie, they would probably think the same thing, you know?
Probably very true.
Yep.
Yeah.
But his dad is trying to get him to be a kid. It flashes forward to the next morning, and his dad's like talking to his mom, and he's like, I just want him to be a kid. I love him. I want him to be a normal kid. And so he's building him a treehouse. And at one point, he was like he's trying to get him to come up into the tree and bring him a bag of nails. He shoots out some statistic about most accidents in the home or with a ladder or whatnot, blah, 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 blah.
19% of home accidents involve a ladder.
Sure.
Something like that.
And his dad was like, okay, put the nails in the bucket and use the pulley system to send them up to me. And he does, and his dad ends up falling off the ladder and falling out of the
Because
tree.
he drops the buckets when it gets above his dad, which falls directly on the back of his head, which then catapults him out of the treehouse.
So
onto the
proving that
old
this statistic is wrong, it's 100%. So he falls out of the tree onto his ass. His dad should be really injured, but he isn't. And there was one scene where I think Kyle mentioned this with the baseball. He's like talking to the mom, and he's like, I tried to sign him up for baseball, and he was telling all the kids that if you get hit in the head with a baseball, you get a tumor. So it's like his character was responsible for the early scientific discovery of CTE.
True. That's where it came from.
I was like, really? We're ahead of our time right now. Way ahead of our time with this discovery.
And just so we establish it, what's the character's name again? Something Richie, right?
Yeah, it's like Taylor or something like that. Richie Taylor.
Tim Chumlin, I think is what his name was.
Chum Chimlin.
Yes, Richard Tyler.
Great
Yeah.
name.
Tim Chumlins. Tim Chumlins.
So his dad gets this idea. He's like, I'm out of nails. I need more nails. So I'm going to give him $5 and I'm going to give him this bag of nails and say, hey, I need you to go to the hardware store and get more of these. That's your mission. And you're going to get out in the world. And it seems simple enough. Well, he gets on his bike, which his bike is
I did wanted to say that was like one of the, as a kid, I was like, that's the coolest bike ever.
Yes.
It's so cool. Like I wanted one so bad.
Yeah. How would you describe it, Kyle? It's got kind of a
It's
Mad
got cool
Max look to it.
yellow fenders, headlights. It's got like a windshield on it. It's got like a thing that holds stuff in the back. Like it's a whole apparatus that they have. So it's definitely a not your average children's bike.
It's a very protective bike.
Yes, overly protective, safe bike. But this all gets negated because he immediately goes out and it looks like it's about to start fucking pouring down rain. He's also driving this thing on main thoroughfares on the road. This is the 90s. There were no bike lanes. This was like, you got a bike in the middle of the road, you're going to be roadkill.
Which doesn't seem like a great idea to have your incredibly timid son, potentially autistic son, riding his bike through town when he's like deathly afraid of everything. I guess that's a good way to get him out of his comfort zone, but like clearly they missed a diagnosis here and they probably shouldn't throw their son out into the open like that. But hey,
and
it's the 90s.
And it's storming. It's not just like raining. It is absolutely storming. Like trees are going down. And so he, not knowing really what to do, he crashes his bike into a tree, and I don't know why all of a sudden his bike is just broken down. He can't use it, but he panics and runs into the building next to him, which happens to be a huge library, which I don't think this small town can structure that type of building and run it and operate it with funding. But here we are. And he runs into the library, and it's incredibly dark inside. It's like they're creating this mysterious, suspenseful atmosphere of this public space, and he is the only one in this library, which I also found weird because I think a lot of people that would be downtown would probably run into the library to get out of the storm. It feels like, I don't know. Or maybe there would be more than just him in there. There had to be a couple people or some college students. So I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but this library is huge and it's empty until we meet our next character. Who is that, Andrew?
It's the librarian, played by the great Christopher Lloyd.
Let's go ahead and give him a standing ovation. All across the world, you give a standing ovation to Christopher Lloyd. He does no wrong. Incredible actor.
He really doesn't. He's been in so many movies, so many different characters. He is
our childhood.
Phenomenal talent.
He is our childhood. You think about like this movie, Back to the Future. If you saw that as a kid, which I hope you did.
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Christopher Lloyd was in so many different things as kids that I just remember him from. And it's just, I don't remember him much after that. And I know he was in things as I got into my adulthood, but it just feels like he is kind of in that space and time as like a childhood hero of mine. So if Christopher Lloyd, if you're listening, which I think he doesn't he live in Billings, Montana?
I don't fucking know.
He's listening. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
That's who it is.
Kyle, how is this character introduced? What does Christopher Lloyd do?
He is the person who receives our young Macaulay Culkin. And this is where I want to get into my theory in a second, but just to kind of give you a lowdown, like this young boy is walking into the library and he's greeted by this older gentleman. And he is being told that it's too bad to go back outside. Well, I need to get home. And he's like, that's not what I heard, essentially, because he was like, I heard that you were looking for like adventure. That you were looking for this. He's like, I'm not looking for any of that. I'm trying to get home. He's like, oh, you're not looking for that kind of stuff? Oh, well then, essentially the phone's down that way, down that corridor. But mind your step. And this is the part where I was immediately just like, doesn't really seem like this older gentleman who is essentially getting an entrapped young person in his purview doesn't really want him to leave. I was getting icky vibes from it. It was making me feel a little yucky.
It was a little creepy.
Yeah, and he was like he was like, oh, you want a book, right? And he goes through this like long monologue about like books and adventure, fantasy, horror, adventure, whatever he was like talking about. And then once the kid says he doesn't read, which at Kyle, I'm going to add to this, bullshit. This kid doesn't know that many statistics without reading.
He reads everything he fucking can. That was a mishap in the creation of the script. That was an error.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That kid is reading everything he can. That's not happening. That's not real. The fact that the kid says he doesn't read. He goes down this long corridor. It's completely dark. The guy does not want to turn any lights on for him. I don't know. Did the power go out in town? Is that what we're led to believe?
I feel that. Yeah, I think.
No, because he turns on the lights. Mr. Lloyd turns on the lights. The power was out in the library.
But even when he turns the lights on, it's still very dim and very dark in the whole library.
It is.
But then once Richard, or whatever his name is, gets into the next room, there's lights.
Yeah, but he goes in and he has this big like kind of plaza looking area. It's massive with these kind of cathedral ceilings.
It's like a rotunda ceiling.
Yeah, and he looks up and he sees this huge mural on the ceiling, and he sees it looks like Merlin,
pirates.
Yeah, all the genres that we're about to get into. It's incredibly hand-fisted.
I'm pretty sure. Or something into that. So
and he ends up slipping on the water from his jacket, and he gets CTE. So everything that he was worried about from baseball, he got from slipping on this floor and smashing his head against the concrete tile. So he's unconscious, Andrew, and then he wakes up, and then what happens when he wakes up?
In like a tower of bookshelves or something like that.
No, it's the paint dripping.
I'll let you take this because I don't remember the sequence of events. But
yeah, so he's knocked unconscious and he wakes up, and then the paint from the mural starts like dripping. And
this is before he gets transported into the animated world, correct? He's still in.
Yes. He's by him being unconscious and waking up, he's in a dream world. Like it's pretty telegraphed there that now he's waking up in a dream world. And so the paint starts dripping off the mural and it's all running down, and then he's running from the paint. And the paint looks god awful. Oh my God!
I feel like this is one of those moments where they spent a lot of money on these effects and that hiked the budget up, and it didn't do anything for the story whatsoever.
Yeah, it didn't help. It didn't progress things along.
Right, and this probably looked okay at the time. I don't remember it being that bad when I was a kid, so I'm sure at '94. But they're using digital animation here, and we've talked about it a little bit on the show with this series of animation that we're running through. For some reason, or not for some reason, they're trying a lot with these digital animations. It's something new, and at the time, it probably wowed a lot of audiences, but it does not hold up under the lens because it is too much ahead of its time. So this digital animation part where all the paint is rushing towards him sucks. It looks awful. It's just not appealing this day and age. But eventually, all the paint rushes him, and he wakes up in an animated world, and he is now animated. And then what do we get now, Kyle, now that he's woken up in this animated world?
So now he's exploring his surroundings, and he starts to interact, and this is when we meet some of our characters. The first character that we meet...
He's still in the library.
Yes, still in the library. We never really leave the library. We're always technically in the library, but not really, but kind of. So, but the first character that we see is a book, and this book is a pirate book. And this book is like got a bandana, a big old mustache, big nose. I think he's got a gold tooth, and he's got a
hook and a peg leg.
Hook and a peg leg. Thank you, Andrew. But yeah, he represents like the adventure. He's the adventure book.
And who voices this adventure book, Kyle? It shocked me.
Is this Leonard Nimoy?
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, yes.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick does not say he did a good job acting this because it didn't sound like him at all.
No, not at all.
It sounded familiar to me. Like I could hear like the timbre. I was like, I know that voice, but I don't know who the hell it is. I looked up. I was like, oh, that's Patrick Stewart doing a really good pirate impression. All right, cool, awesome.
See, so we get him, and he starts explaining to him like the world that they're in, and our character, Macaulay Culkin, is his only objective right now is to like get out. So how does he find out that he's gonna get out, Andrew?
He meets another character here very shortly after adventure. This one is a book that has wings and it's like a pinkish purple color. And this book also has a wand. It's supposed to be like a fairy godmother, voiced by Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah, and both these books, adventure and fantasy, see that there's this human that they can talk to and fraternize with, and they're like, oh, we see this human, that's our ticket out, that's how we leave this place, by getting checked out by the human boy. So like, hey, we'll show you where to go, it's this way, no, it's that way, no, it's this way. And of course, Mr. Scaredy Pants doesn't know what to do with anything because he's too afraid to make a move. Of course, he's going to follow them blind because he wants to get the hell out. But like I said, for these two books, their ticket out is to be checked out by the library by said human.
Right,
So,
and we kind of glossed over where the library card came into play.
Yeah, that was an important piece, but
because before he tried to go reach the phone so he could call his parents, Christopher Lloyd's character gave him a library card, said you'll need one of these. And so now he's carrying the library card as like a badge of honor, and that's also like his negotiating tool with the books. Adventure and fantasy don't really care too much for each other, so they're kind of bickering a lot. And Adventure, played by the great Patrick Stewart, always got to mention him again. He's very brash and very arrogant. And fantasy,
he's a pirate.
Right, he is a pirate. There is a funny line in there, too, where Fantasy takes the library card when she discovers it, and he's like, it's a library card. And then he's like, honey, I'm a book. I can read. I thought that was a pretty funny line. It's very clever.
Yeah, I did chuckle at that one.
That was a good one.
They kind of maneuver over what happens next, Andrew, after they get together.
Well, one thing that seems to happen in this movie, is if you open a book, then, what is in that book comes out with it. So in this instance, I don't know why they opened Hound of the Baskervilles, but they did. And this giant hound, this evil, ferocious animal, pops out and starts chasing them all around.
They also they opened 20,000 leagues and
under the sea. Yep.
What happens? They're getting chased by this hound, and Adventure's like, you gotta climb up this ladder, and Richard's like, I can't. And Adventure's like, all right, you dumb shit. And he opens up Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and of course, the Kraken or the squid or whatever.
Giant squid.
Yeah, it starts to come to life, and Richie's right there, and the only way out of that situation is to climb up the ladder. So Adventure scared our little antagonist into overcoming his first fear. They get up that ladder, they jump to the other side, I believe, of that bookcase, and then they're in a different world altogether.
They're in the horror section.
Horror.
It's a graveyard with like towers of books and shelves of books all around, and there's a big old haunted house. Seems like a haunted house off in the distance.
Very Dracula, Universal Monster style horror.
But already at this point, we've seen a lot of darker elements for a children's movie. You have that savage hound, you have the giant squid, and then you're catapulted into... It felt like the beginning of like a Scooby-Doo episode.
It really did.
Like it really did. Yeah, it did. But it was a lot darker than that.
It was darker.
It was darker.
The lighting that they're using, the yellow eyes from the dog, they don't really like play around with the fears here. So
they don't mince it. No.
And I will say, we'll talk about it now since we're deep into the animation world. The animation here is fun. It is classic Disney
Yeah.
animation. There's no bones about it. There's no nuance
frills.
to it. Yeah, but it
Nope.
looks so good because it's all hand drawn and
Now,
the environment is hand drawn.
When you say classic Disney, you mean like it looks classic Disney, right?
Right.
Not that it
Yes.
is
Yeah.
Disney. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Don't want
that
to
style.
confuse anyone out there.
It is that style. It is. I know it's not Disney, but you could tell that they used a lot of the different Disney styles in this, which, again, they're a new animation studio. They're just going to work with what's best.
You probably had some former Disney animators that were on this movie, if we're being honest.
Had to have been. It almost like resembled Peter Pan to me, too, in certain color palettes and stuff.
Absolutely. That pirate ship that looked like the pirate ship in Peter Pan.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of the pirates that we'll meet here soon were similar to what you saw in the original classic. So.
Yeah. And now they're moving on. They go up to the house. They're going to see if they can find an exit through the house. And they ring the bell. And another character falls into their lap, falling...
Mm-hmm.
It was a huge fall for this character from the top of the mansion all the way down, and I think Macaulay Culkin's character catches this book, and this book is very much Hunchback of Notre Dame, Renfield style character, and it's our horror book. And what's his name? Horror, right?
Horror. Yes.
Yep, exactly.
Horror.
They don't really try really hard.
He's Igor. He's essentially Igor.
Humanoid-ish and
super sweet, though. Such a caring character. He wants to be along for the ride. And it's ironic because he is horror, but yet he is the most down-to-earth, sweet character. And you know that was done intentionally.
Yep. And this is where we get one of the better lines in the movie when they're talking about, what's a horror book? What does that mean? He says, like, well, we have this kind of ending, and fantasy has a happy ending. And he says, horror movies always have sad endings. And the way he said that, and the way he looks off to the side is it's really heavy because a lot of horror books, horror movies, horror tales do not end well, and they're very heartbreaking and sad a lot of times.
Yeah. And the fact of reminiscing on his own existence, he's living in this graveyard and no one's going to check him out. Because that's the thing about these books is they're classic books. They're fantasy and Robinson Crusoe, and the horror book you can say is probably The Hunchback of Notre Dame. These are books that have been lost to time. People aren't checking them out anymore. They're going for the new thing. You could probably go in depth with it more than that I'm sure that they didn't think about either. But they eventually all get together, and he's like, you can come with us. I'll check you out, too. So he's, excited now. He wants to be a part of the group. Adventure's pissed off that we've got another one to add to the group. And they go into the house, and who do they meet, Andrew?
It's Dr. Jekyll, the good side of Jekyll and Hyde. He's this well-to-do man, and he's like, you are in grave danger. Evil spirits are found. And they're like, oh, no. What do we do?
Who's Dr. Jekyll played by, Kyle?
I do not know. Was that Leonard Nimoy?
It was Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Another flawless voice performance tier too. Really good voice acting throughout this movie.
Well, this is where it gets into the part that Andrew was kind of alluding to. Where this is very Scooby-Doo up until this point. At this point,
this is another level.
Things kind of happen pretty quickly, and Dr. Jekyll offers everybody an adult drink, and I think Macaulay Culkin goes, I don't drink or whatever, and then the pirate, Adventure, takes the martini glass. He's trying to drink it, and he's fighting with horror over it, and they spill the drink, and it just eats through the floor when it spills.
Yeah.
So and they kind of realize something's up, and then they see Dr. Jekyll about to take it, and he starts drinking. They go, no, wait, don't drink it. And he puts a hand out to stop Macaulay Culkin, but he's already drank it, and almost instantly his hand turns grotesque into a monster hand, and the sound that comes out of him gave me goosebumps. No joke. I was like, ooh, that's fucking scary. And everything that happens after that is really fucking scary because the animation style they use for him in this scenario is it's very kids movie, sure, yeah, but it's dark, and it's black ink red and yellow eyes.
Like vicious looking creature. Like you think of like movie villains and cartoons, but ramp it up like 5 to 10 times. Like it is.
Yeah.
It's nightmarish.
They do that thing too that a lot of the movies we've talked about do, except they do it to the next level. They use the shadows as your fear because you can't see anything. So they use the shadows of him turning into. I mean, he's turning into Mr. Hyde, and as he's turning into Mr. Hyde, you see it on the wall, and his shadow starts like overcoming the other character's shadows, meaning he is becoming something bigger than them. And when you get a look of his face, that scared the shit out of me as a kid. I remember
it was scary as hell.
I remember this specific scene because I remember I would always take the VHS and fast forward through this. I could not watch this as a kid.
You little bitch.
I am a little bitch.
Andrew, chastise him.
You soft, dainty bitch. That is what you are.
You are just the most demure, apologetic,
supple, little, wristy little bitch.
Wristy?
Yeah, you know what he means.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Okay. All right, I'm glad that you guys got your fill. So the chandelier comes down, right, at some point, and it wraps up Horror, and he gets tangled up, and the floorboard's caving in, and it's going to hell. It's not just going to like the basement level or like the first floor of the home. It's going to hell. Like everything's burning, and Hyde falling through, and he's trying to pull Horror with him. And I forgot how he does it, but Richie ends up somehow saving Horror, the book.
Yep. It was Richie.
Yeah, it was Richie.
Richie was too afraid to do anything. It was Fiction who went and used her wand as like a weapon, and she melted the iron chains that were wrapped around him, which broke him free, while Richie stood over in the corner acting like a timid little bitch when he could have easily run over there, moved the chains, picked up the book, and got back to where they were.
That's probably I was fast forwarding through the scene, so I don't remember it. So they end up saving him, and they're moving along on their adventure, and they end up finding a boat. Right, Kyle? So now they're in a boat.
Yes.
And this movie's moving like that. It is moving so quick. So now they're in a boat, and they run into a captain. And so what happens next?
So this is where we meet one of the greatest novels of all time, being Moby Dick, Herman Melville. And we meet our captain. This is pretty quick, too. Like, this whole sequence happens really quick. Essentially, they meet Captain Ahab. He's in search of the white whale. They're in the boat with him, and he harpoons the whale. The whale fucks him up and kills him, essentially, which is what happens. I mean, that's what happens. And the whale, well, it was a pretty scary moment. The whale, you see the whale come up from underneath.
You see its eye, too. It goes like full Jaws, and I was like, Jesus Christ, we're just horror after horror after horror.
And immediately just pops up, destroys their boat, and then they're lost at sea.
Yeah, and they get separated too, right? Because don't we get Adventure and Macaulay Culkin are on one shard of debris?
He can't find the other two.
Right.
Yeah, they get lost in the deep blue ocean there.
And we're coming up on another really good line too that I actually wrote down. But they're kind of on this plank of wood and kind of drifting out at sea, and then we see they are pirate characters. They're in a little rowboat, and they're rowing towards them, and Richie starts yelling, like, hey, see us, come help us. And that's when Adventure looks at him and says, careful, boy, not all sharks are in the water.
Yeah, that was a good line.
And at that time, sharks start circling the debris, and so they're kind of giving you the juxtaposition there, which I really appreciate. But they end up getting rescued.
Quote-unquote rescued. Quote-unquote rescued.
Rescued by these two pirates that take them back to this huge pirate ship. And that's where we meet who, Andrew?
Long John Silver.
He's a real bastard,
notorious. He's notorious. Yeah, he's a typical pirate. Swashbuckling.
Swashbuckler.
Swashbuckler.
In this case, a buckler.
Buckler, yes, road-breaking degenerate who pillages and does other illegal things. He's got a motley crew of people, many people with IQs below 70, but they do his bidding, and they're gross and dirty. And looks like adventure here, and
Did you say
are
IQ
now
below 70?
captive. I said his crew has a collective IQ below.
So it's the Senate.
Oh, they're all stupid, huh?
So it's the Senate.
Sure.
They're not 83 years old, though, Chase.
No, this is like 30 years, 40 years before.
This is people that will be members of the Senate.
Correct. Yeah,
You
this
got
is
thievery, and an IQ below 70. So it's got to be them, right?
Yeah, it's their predestination before their ultimate. But yeah, they're captive. They are prisoners now at the hands of Captain Long John Silver, who is voiced by the great Jim Cummings. Cummings has been, the voice of so many things throughout our childhood. Obviously, Winnie the Pooh, but like I knew it was Jim.
Tasmanian Devil too. I think
Yes.
It's a classic.
So many
classic voice actor.
I knew the voice again. Didn't exactly know who it was, but as soon as I looked at the cast list, I was like, oh, okay, Jim Cummings, cool.
Yeah.
And I figured it was someone like that.
So what happens next is they take Adventure and Richie captive, and they're going to this island. They're going to Treasure Island, and they talk about that a lot. So they take the big ship and then the rowboats over to Treasure Island. They're up to no good, and it seems like they're going to kill Richie and Adventure once they find the treasure. So they get to the island. There's some spooky stuff that happens, like they found a skeleton pointing in the direction of the treasure, and then they find this chest, and they get over there, and there's nothing in the chest. So the pirates think that Long John Silver has hung him out to dry, and that he's already taken the treasure for himself.
And they turn on him.
Yeah, so now they've got a huge standoff, and then we hear a voice from the distance. What do we hear, Kyle?
We hear Horror's voice. We hear something big.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's that? That's scary. We might as well run away because, like you said, we have a collective IQ of 70. And this is where they start. Isn't this right, Chase? They start following the voice, and it leads them to
So they get ambushed, and the books and Richie all kind of like stand their ground and take out all the pirates. And then Long John Silver was like, "Ha, you showed them, boy. Like, follow me. We're gonna go back to the boat. We're gonna find this treasure." And Richie grabs a sword that's too heavy for him, and he threatens Long John Silver, and he's like, "You got some balls, boy. You got some balls." And he gets in the boat and just rows off while they stay on the island. And now they're kind of like, you're starting to see Richie's character start to develop some courage and some strength. And that's kind of what this whole journey is about, is having courage. I don't know why you have to go through all this shit to get a little bit of courage, but here we are.
Yeah.
And so now we move on to our next step. What happens next, Andrew?
I believe Venture Horror has a little scuffle here where I don't know what the deal is, but Horror is made fun of by Adventure. He says some great things. Horror like off and fiction, fantasy, and Richie are like, "Where's Horror?" He's like, "Well, there's somewhere. I don't know where he went. He's gone." And like, "Well, you better go find him, you asshole. You probably said something to him that wasn't very nice." He's like, "Oh, okay." He walks off into the sands, and he takes a few left turns, and then he stumbles across Horror, who has been captured by these little people. It was a reference to Gulliver's Travels.
Yep.
He was captured by the Lilliputians of Lilliput.
Yes, exactly. And of course, Adventure, being the brash, bold character that he is, he goes in, breaks up the scene, sends the Putians away, and unravels Horror from his little traps. And it appears that Horror has left us. And at this point, Adventure's, "Oh, what a one man he was. Big hearts. I loved him so much. Blah, 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 blah. He was everything." And then Horror's like, "Hey, still alive. I heard of that, though."
So After that, Kyle, where do we go from here once the gang's all back together?
Exit sign.
Yeah, so we hit. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So we're getting to the end pretty quickly.
There is a huge exit sign off in the distance. We've seen it multiple times.
So they finally get close to the exit sign. They think they're going to leave, but this is where
we got one more genre left to go, right?
And that is
fantasy. Which is also a horror version of fantasy because we get a big-ass man-eating dragon.
Yes, we do.
And
so
fire breathing.
This whole part is essentially him finding the last bit of his courage to fight the big bad dragon. And I don't remember how it begins. Chase, if you want to take that part, I can butt in after that. But I don't remember how it starts.
They're climbing this like structure, and the whole time we hear that he's so scared of heights. That's one of his biggest fears is heights. And so for him to get out of this world, he has to climb this huge structure. It's like a mountain, but it's not quite. It's kind of hard to. It's like a tower mountain, kind of weird thing. But him and the book start climbing. They're separated, and it wakes up the dragon. And now the dragon is trying to kill him, is basically it. We get this long fight scene. We don't need to go into all the details. But how he gets out of it is eventually he falls down with some books where a dead knight is. As he's climbing up, and this dragon's chasing after him, he finds this knight's armor and this...
He finds the shield, the sword, and the helmet.
Yes, and so he puts
all three of those on to battle the dragon.
Right, and so he starts battling the dragon, because the dragon has cornered the books, so he's trying to save the books now, and he's not doing any damage with this sword. He's just kind of like resting it on the dragon multiple times.
Exactly, yeah.
And eventually the dragon eats him, just eats him.
Yes. Just straight up, because he's completely ineffectual. But this leads to I think the most metal part of the whole movie. In order to get out of the dragon, he sees books in the dragon's stomach.
There's a lot of
the books.
There's a lot of books.
And he's
like
looking for
another corridor.
Yes, he's looking for some. He's like, how the fuck can I get out of here? He's looking for this. This isn't what doesn't work. He goes, oh, Jack and the Beanstalk. So he opens the book. He finds the right page, and the stalk just throat fucks the dragon to death from the inside out, and he just
it is like a metal music video from the 80s. It's like if we were watching like Slayer. It is pretty
that dragon just got fucked up by a giant beanstalk, and you don't see that dragon again, but I'm guessing it just blew up.
Well, it starts the beanstalk goes through, and then he's riding the beanstalk up, and he grabs the books, and he's like, let's go home. And they're all celebrating. The dragon starts eating and chewing on the beanstalk. So it starts
That's right, I forgot about that.
And
he starts trying to guzzle that fucking beanstalk to the back of his throat.
Which is also metal. Which is also very metal.
Very metal.
And so he's got to jump now. The beanstalk is dwindling, so now he's got to jump. So his fear of heights comes into play here. And what happens, Andrew? He jumps, right?
He jumps, and he lands. I wouldn't say he lands, but he grabs onto the ledge, pulls himself up, and there he is with him and his three friends.
Like you said, he gets up on the ledge, and then that's when they meet the Pagemaster again, which is a character we didn't mention earlier. But when he first gets into the dream world, it's the animated version of Christopher Lloyd. He's the Pagemaster. And
it's also like a Merlin type character.
Yeah, he's very much Merlin. And he looks at him and he says, now that you have the courage, you can go home. And it's like, you didn't have to do all this to prove courage. This was a lie. He's like, I couldn't let you leave the world unless you proved your courage, which again goes back to the creepy vibes that the man in the library was given, where he just locks up all the children and says that they have to prove courage before he can let them go home. I'm sure that there's a dungeon or something with all those children in it. But he eventually is let to go home, and it shows his body laying on the floor, and his soul re-enters his body, and the three books land next to him in their real life form. They're no longer animated. They're just old books. And that's when Christopher Lloyd's real life character comes through. He goes, are you okay, young man? You took quite the spill. I was like, he's been unconscious for 45 fucking minutes. You should have called a hospital. Yeah.
This is my theory, because we come to in the real world again, in the live action world, and he is standing with one of his legs in between Macaulay Culkin's legs and the other one on the outside. It's a very weird position to be in. Very strange. And this whole bit about like you need to find your courage. I couldn't let you go until you found your courage. And now that you found it, I guess it's time to wake up. What does that mean? What is that? What was the courage? Was it did Macaulay Culkin, did this guy know that he was going to slip, or did he help facilitate a slip in which he became unconscious? And then he's just all of a sudden in that dream world dissociating and finding a like a happy place essentially. Because like you got to find the courage to do the right thing. You got to find the courage. What was the courage? What was the courageous act? What did he need to do in order to appease the pagemaster or the librarian to get out? It's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up
strange.
road to go down. It's a very strange road. My other theory is that he got hit and killed by a car, and the rest of this was just like him, like his last little bit of life as a DMT course throughout his body, so that he got to have a nice little send off.
It was very much like a near-death experience. That's what
It was a fever dream.
Yeah.
There was a section when he was talking to the pagemaster and he was looking at his body. He's like, "That's me," and then the pagemaster says, "It was you." So there's some validity to what Kyle's saying there, that he could just be dead, by the pagemaster's hands. I think this is a prequel to the Black Phone. But he ends up trying to check the books out from Christopher Lloyd. He wants to take them home with him because he promised. And he's like, "You can only check out 2," which I've never known to be a rule in any library.
Yeah, you can check. There's a limit, but it goes far beyond, too. It's like 10.
Yeah,
Not for me. Not for me. Not for
You're
me.
right. You get special favors from all public
I get
libraries.
special favors. They
So-
know me.
Yep.
Just this once, I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
He rushes home, and then it cuts to a scene of his parents driving up back home, and they're like, "We've looked everywhere for him. We can't find
It's
him."
dark. It's dark. We should call the police. Why didn't you call the police hours ago, Mom and Dad?
They were searching all of downtown for him. This is like a huge level disaster for a family. And they get home and they see him and he's asleep in the treehouse with the 3 books. And they're like, "Oh, how cute." And I was like, "No, wake his ass up and find out where he's been."
Yes.
And bring him back into the home. Don't let, a kid sleep out in a treehouse that's uncovered with no door. You never know what could happen.
Yeah, like
Make him come back in.
the family is instantly like fine with him being home. They're like, "And we'll let him roam again." It was like, no. And now you got to cancel that APB that you put out on him and the missing persons report. You got to cancel all of that because and you're just not going to ask him where he's been. I'd question that librarian. Like, what are we doing here? These parents should be in jail as well.
Do you all recognize the dad?
Is that the guy from Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah, he's been in tons of stuff. He was in Pineapple Express. He was the dad. Remember Seth Rogen's character?
He's a dad in everything he's in. He's always plays the same character.
Except for Full Metal Jacket. Except for that.
No. But his line in
Ed Begley, that's it.
is so funny. He's like, "Are you high? Are you fucking high?"
So good.
It's perfect. But that's Ed Begley right there. Great actor.
He's a great character actor.
He is.
But it ends with the books seemingly coming back to life. You see it through the shadows, so they're kind of alive and
Horace crying because he has friends and they're all happy and feeling loved because they were checked out, so now they're being read.
And that's it. That's it. It's an hour 15. It's an hour 15-minute movie. It's like you can watch it in no time. Andrew, starting with you, since you have no recollection as a child, how'd you feel about it as an adult?
This is one that I feel like I would have really enjoyed as a kid. It's one that I wish I would have watched. It had magical elements and dark elements, all intertwined for a great metaphor. A cute little story. It didn't feel really quick. This is what I wish that I had uncovered when I was a child, because I feel like I really would have enjoyed it.
Yeah. Kyle, what about you? You watched it as a kid.
Yeah. No, this is definitely one that I had watched a couple times. I was very young when this came out. I was like 4. So I probably watched it when I was like 5 or 6. And it's a very entertaining movie for a child. because it's very imaginative, and
Incredibly.
there's not a whole bunch left or how much in it to like decipher for very simple, easy to digest watch.
Yeah, I remember everything, man. I was watching this and I could remember the lines. I was like, oh man, wow. And this is one of those films that like we've done, and I've just everything just flooded back to me. And I think Andrew, you talked about a couple of movies that did that for you.
Yeah.
I was just riding the nostalgia high on this one. I was remembering watching this in my parents' bedroom because there was the VHS player was in
Wow.
there. I was young enough, I had like toys out, so I'd like watch these movies and just play with toys and just being in that world. And I remember it captivated me as a kid. As an adult, this is not really an adult movie.
No.
It's hard. It's hard to kind of get around that, and you know we do this show for a reason to try and not let nostalgia be biased for us. I enjoyed it, but I at the same time I was kind of like, there's not a lot of the here. There's not a lot of fluff. It's just kind of it is what it is. If I had a child, it would be different, you know. But to me, this is one of the reasons it kind of came and went as a movie because everyone remembers this movie, but no one talks about this movie. I don't like you can ask everybody like, hey, you remember the Pagemaster? And they like you can see their like wheels turning. And like something like that, yeah. And then you mention Macaulay Culkin, like, oh yeah, that movie.
Yeah, that's right.
And like I don't remember that much, yeah. And so like that's where we're at now. So I had a good time with the nostalgia, but that wore off, I think, pretty quickly. About 30 minutes into the movie, I was like, this is really cookie cutter. But I did enjoy the performances we got from like Christopher Lloyd, Patrick Stewart, Leonard Nimoy, Cummings. We got
Macaulay Culkin.
yeah.
Macaulay Culkin's really talented. He was a really talented child actor.
I was reading that he got absolutely bashed for this film. He won a Razzie for this.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, he was not that bad in this movie.
No, not at all.
But this was the start of his fall, right? Was around.
It was 4 years after Home Alone, and I would say that was around the time when things started to really turn for him. I don't know specifics, but I would imagine,
especially having this would have been a dud. Winning a Razzie and this being a huge blockbuster failure is not good for a kid his age because they will toss you to the side in Hollywood. It's just the way it works. But Andrew, does it hold up?
I think it does. I try to hold all movies to the same standard. Like there was something there. Again, not a movie for adults, but I don't know. I think about some of the other children's movies we watched, and I think it's far better than a number of them. It's a decent little through line. The metaphor is all about what books can do for you, can do for your courage, your brain, your persona, the adventures and journeys they can take you on, which is a nice little message.
Yeah.
Probably falls on deaf ears nowadays without technological and, you know, I don't want to say illiterate, but there's plenty of people who don't.
No, I think that's plenty fair. I think literacy rates amongst children and our younger generations is pretty high.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So, like I said, I appreciate the through line. I like the metaphor, the darker elements. I think if there weren't darker elements and this was all just hunky dory, I wouldn't feel that way. But there was some mature themes and plot lines that you don't necessarily see in a children's movie. Is this one that I'll just casually put on to watch it again? No. I've said it this before with other movies. This is one that I would absolutely show my children if and when the time comes. And I think they would find enjoyment in it. So on that alone, yeah, I think it holds up. It's not an astounding, resounding yes, if you will, but it's a yes.
Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, no, it does. Much to your point, Chase, this did bring up a lot of memories, especially the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde piece and the Lilliputians at the end. Like, I definitely remember aspects of this movie. So, child rating, oh, great, holds up for sure. As an adult, this is one that I'm going to give it. It teeters for me, like Andrew said. Like, yeah, it holds up, but I mean, this is like watch this with your kids, and watch it a couple times, or watch it once if you don't have kids, you don't plan on it. You don't need to touch it again. But I definitely think it's worth a watch to bring up if you have memories of this movie to watch it. If you don't, I don't know. I mean, it's not going to hurt. There are certainly much worse movies that we have covered that don't even deserve your time or attention. Yeah, but this is one that you're not going to regret it, but you're also not going to remember it because it meanders too much and it doesn't really sit too long in one theme or another. So it does hold up, but a little bit more of a nuanced hold up for me.
Yeah, totally fair. I can agree with all of that. I'm in the same boat with you, Kyle, but I'm going to add a little bit to it. I think it does hold up. It barely holds up. It's not one that, again, if you have a child, this is a fun one to watch with a child. I don't think this is something you're going to watch yourself unless you just have huge nostalgia for it. I think it can be like a little bit of fun, but it's only an hour and 15 minutes. That lowers the bar a lot on what can hold up and what doesn't. I don't think it dates itself that much. Outside of the digital animation with the paint at the beginning, all the animation still looks pretty good. The live action scenes are not horrible. They're well lit. If it almost feels like a made for TV movie at points too from the 90s.
Yeah.
But for me, when do we see movies now for kids about imagination? That's a lost thing from the 80s and the 90s. We had movies like this all the time. These like this fantasy like worlds and this world building, and we don't really get that anymore for kids. And I think the power of imagination is lost.
Yeah.
Especially imagination powered by like literary classics.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah,
not,
good point, Andrew.
people don't watch PBS anymore, and we don't get those silly home videos that our fourth grade teacher put in for English class.
We
for
don't
the
get to
11
watch
o'clock hour. Like,
Wishbone, which was a
no,
Oh,
or Franklin or any of those types that pay homage to the great classics that
yeah.
created them in a sense.
So for that lost kind of world, I do say it holds up, and I think it is a
Yeah.
good. I think it's a good film for a kid. It's hard to kind of beat that. I don't think it's something you should go in expecting. It barely holds up, but it does hold up. It doesn't do anything egregious. And seeing some of these people like Christopher Lloyd, Leonard Nimoy, and Patrick Stewart on the same cast is not something we're going to get very often anymore. And they put in a good shift. They don't like phone anything
not phoned in at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've done enough animated movies in this like stretch of this year to tell you that there's been some phoned in performances like Titan AE. Kyle, you weren't on that episode, but I know you watched it. Some of that voice acting was
some of those
god awful.
Yeah, man, there was some stuff that I liked, but there were definitely some performances that were very subpar, to say the least.
Yeah. So it definitely, to me, it does hold up. I guess we're going to do IMDb ratings. Andrew, what would you give it?
I'd probably go like 6. I'm gonna go in the sixes, but like low sixes, like 6.3, maybe 6.3.
I'm gonna say
again, not.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say not. That's not like some tour de force script by any means, but it has a pretty solid through line, a definite beginning, middle, and end. You go on the journey, you don't feel completely detracted. So 6.3. I think that's fair.
I'm gonna say 5.6 on this one. I don't think it's as good as A Bug's Life, and I don't even think it's as good as Ants, but it's still fun. It's a 5.6, which seems very low, but I think it's worth seeing again with the right circumstances. Kyle, what about you?
5.9.
Okay, all right. I think we're all in the same area.
Yep.
Andrew, do you know what the actual score is?
I'm looking at it right now. It is 6.2.
Okay.
So we're all right there.
Very close.
I know that this has like an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. It got panned
That's
pretty
it's
quickly.
a little harsh there.
Tomatoes can eat shit.
Yeah, fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
There you have it, everybody. The Pagemaster does hold up. And you know what we do here. We reach into your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they hold up. Today we turned the page, found out the Pagemaster does hold up. There's a bit of circumstances to watch that movie with. Andrew, you got some news for us. What are we doing next week?
Y'all like basketball?
We do like basketball, and we're in March.
Kyle said no, but he's wrong. We're gonna pull out Space Jam, not the remake with LeBron James, but the original with the GOAT Michael Jordan. yeah, we're gonna give that one a try. See what we think.
Another big movie for us and as children,
Huge
I
movie.
imagine.
Yeah.
Another live action / animation movie too. So we're following a theme here. But in the meantime, you know what you can do? You can go on Instagram, TikTok, follow us there, where you can find out what's coming down the road. We'll see you all next week for Space Jam.